So, Kristen, I'm pissed off. Miranda and I are both pissed off about this. Apparently, according to the Trump administration, Jeffrey Epstein did in fact kill himself. He was not murdered. And there's no client list, not one pedophile
It's all
on that.
Ghislaine. It's all Ghislaine Maxwell.
Yeah, she's the woman takes the fall, and I don't defend her, but
No,
like,
no, not at all.
I mean, she's disgusting as well, but like, she's the only person that's taking the fall in this. I don't understand why the DOJ announced this over the weekend. Anytime someone does something over a holiday weekend, it means you're trying to bury it. It's like a weird moment to leak news out. And I am not like I guess I am a little bit of a conspiracy theorist, but I'm also like a rational person. I'm sorry, but there's so much smoke in this case. The idea that there's not one famous, powerful person that was on that list, the fact that we had Nancy Grace on a few months ago saying that he definitely was murdered and didn't kill himself. She has not seen evidence enough that he hasn't killed himself. What do you make of all this? And are you as angry as we are? I'm really angry about this. I really wanted to find out who's on that list. I'm sorry, but I did.
Like being lied to, like for
So-
years and years on either side.
So I think, so I'm of several minds about this. I think there's several different issues going on. One is the basic issue of, is it possible that the conspiracy angle was all overblown and we really had this perverted guy and his perverted assistant who were more or less just keeping it sort of this internal sex thing going on, right? And the idea of whether he killed himself or not. I actually don't have a problem believing that he killed himself after reading about the man Epstein. I read a Vanity Fair article, an interview with him from years and years ago before he was even in trouble. And in the article, it talked about how he would not even go out to eat because even the best restaurants, we're talking, 5-star restaurants in New York, were not good enough for him. And he had to have his servants preparing his meals a certain way. So I'm thinking, how is this dude going to fare in prison where there's literally plastic in the food, according to lawsuits that have come out of that Brooklyn facility where he was being housed? So I think on the one hand, the man is facing a basically the rest of his life, more or less, in prison. He's in this horrible place. Maybe he did kill himself. It could be, but here's the problem. And this is where I think I'm upset. And I think that you all have a right to be angry as well. I'm seeing a ton of anger online. This situation is not as it was billed or promoted to us by the members of the Trump administration, who are now telling us, move along. There's nothing to see here. What's wrong with all of you fixating on this Epstein stuff? And to me, I have to say, it's reminiscent of Hillary Clinton's moment. What did she said? I'm sorry, what difference does it make? With all respect. Benghazi, exactly. And that turned out to be a hideous political mistake for her. It was a terrible moment. And to me, that is what we saw yesterday in that horrible response that Trump gave to the question about Epstein. When he feigns surprise and he says, "Epstein, you're really talking to me about Epstein?" I cannot believe that this is the same man, Trump, who has shown such political acuity over the past years. I mean, the guy, you could say what you will about him, but he, in many ways, has been a political genius. And he came back from the brink of disaster with all of those, prosecutions to become president again. I don't understand why he is so tone deaf and frankly, just obtuse on this. I don't get it.
I totally agree with you. And I also feel like there has been so much hype about this. And we were saying at the top of the show, and again, Miranda, jump in whenever you want, that we want to know about this because it's about the highest echelons of power abusing young women and being pedophiles. And we have a right to know if Bill Gates, who was on the flight logs, has publicly admitted that he was friends with Epstein and went to Pedophile Island, if he is a rapist. Because I'm sorry, he is also, meddling in our farmland. He has a lot of like government contracts, like people like that. I'm sorry, if you're a disgusting pedophile, you should be railroaded out of society and in jail like any other pedophile. That's the problem, is that there's an idea that people running our lives and our government are disgusting sicko perverts.
Well, and the idea that these people are getting away with stuff that we would never get away with. And look, I watched an interesting monologue by Meghan Kelly a day or so ago, where she said that she knows some people. She knows Dan Bongino. She doesn't think he would cover things up, and she's talked to people in the DOJ who've said, look, as it turns out, this was not this big ring that we thought it was. It's just not. It's actually a guy who's just very kinky, and he mostly liked women who were just of age. And there actually aren't as many, she was saying, apparently aren't as many of these underage victims as we were told. I don't know. I'm not an expert on the Epstein thing. I just know that this 180-degree about face by people like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, this is the price. This is the price you pay for getting ahead of your skis at times. And so when they were podcasters and they were trying to rack up the viewers, they were saying all kinds of wild stuff. And Dan Bongino saying to his viewers, never let this go. Never let the Epstein thing go. Always stay on this. Well, now they're in the government and it looks like they're just dropping it like a hot plate.
And the other part that I don't understand is when Attorney General Pam Bondi invited all those influencers to the White House to give them the Epstein files. I mean, we have the photo, I think, someplace, and gave them this. That was another time that I was like, oh my God, we're finally going to find out. And then that was something that all the people who were involved in that are still angry. But I know, our good friend Jessica Krause was involved in that. And she, I know for a fact that she felt like misled on that. And I think that they look like assholes, quite frankly, holding binders up and smiling. Again, if I had a binder,
what the Trump administration did to them, I felt so bad for Jessica, and
she's wonderful.
She's been on the Epstein case forever, right? She actually knows the details on this stuff, and so it was so sad to see her basically being sort of co-opted and kind of mistreated by the Trump administration, and still those influencers are still getting shit for that too to this day.
Mm-hmm. Well, she put out a bunch of articles last night, too, with saying that she's not buying any of this explanation from the current administration, that she still stands by everything that she's investigated and reported over the years. And I personally am going to stand with her. I don't buy any of this. I think that all of these people have been co-opted and are being blackmailed or blackballed or whatever it is. This is an enormous cover-up. And whether we find out the truth in 50 years or whatever, it's all going to come out eventually.
I would have a full court press conference with Bondi and Patel and Bongino standing next to me. I would acknowledge fully that an about face has occurred, how it looks to people, that he understands why people are upset and suspicious. And then he needs to account for the discrepancies between what the administration said previously they had. Oh, it's all on my desk, and being assured of all of this evidence and everything. And look, if people misunderstood what she said, fine. But now it's time to explain why has there been such an abrupt 180-degree turn, and people need to have more information about this man.
Kristen, do you want to take the Elon question?
Yeah, so I think it's really hard in the day-to-day to follow Elon's strategy politically. And I'm not trying to dismiss your question. I'd like to hear what Meghan has to say as well, Miranda. But I do feel I feel like Elon is maybe in a bit of a depression or something right now in his life. I think this is kind of a crazy period in his life. I do think that the stories about his drug use are probably on target, and I don't judge anyone for using drugs, but I the way he was acting in that one video at the White House with the kind of all of that and stuff, and he's having a rough time with his businesses. He really is. And then the Doge thing that kind of fell apart in a lot of ways, and now we've got this fight with Trump that seems to be kind of on and off. It's like they're it's like hot and cold. So I'm not sure if I see a real long-term strategy with him and with the way that he's been responding to things recently politically. I don't know. Meghan, Miranda, what do you think?
No, I agree with Kristen that I don't understand what he's doing politically, because clearly it's important to him that he has access to high levels of power, and he liked, being the first dude in the White House or whatever title they gave him. I think when you hit at Trump in this moment and you're him, you're really making big political mistakes. His whole, I'm going to start my own third party. We showed a clip on the last episode about how it has a literal 4% of support. 4% of the American public are interested in his third party. And third parties in American politics, again, I don't make the rules. It just doesn't work. People for whatever reason, really like having a binary choice when it comes to who we're going to elect in higher office and president. Remember when he went to Wisconsin, he tried to pay and influence
a judge,
to the judge in the Wisconsin election for the Supreme Court in Wisconsin, and it was a huge failure. And I think his power came from his association and relationship with President Trump. I also agree with Kristen that I don't know a lot about drugs, and again, I'm not trying to pass judgment on people's lives, but when he had that chainsaw on stage at CPAC, I was like, this doesn't seem like the most sober behavior. Like, and I'm not, again, I don't really know what I'm talking about, but I was like, it just seems really erratic. And I think at a certain point, conservatives are conservative. And I always wondered how someone who was doing, according to the New York Times, copious amounts of drugs, when it is publicly documented how much President Trump hates alcohol and drug use. He himself is a teetotaler. This administration is surrounded by people who are sober and teetotalers. Excuse me. Tulsi Gabbard and RFK, just to name a few. Like, he doesn't like it. And I have been told this in different instances by people he has seen drunk and been grossed out by their behavior. And that's one of the reasons they're no longer like around him. So I never thought any of it worked. And then his like neonatalist, we should have 50 kids. That is not a conservative Republican platform.
And then not take care of them. Yeah.
Yes. It's not one on the left either. Like, it's bizarre. And I'm comfortable saying that I think it's very weird to want to have as many babies as possible with different people and then not actually parent your kids. I think that's fucking weird. And I don't care how much money you have. I think it's strange. And I think the way he treats Grimes is gross.
Like
I really
abusive. It's like a breeding compulsion. I do think, and I'm sorry, I feel like I got us off track on talking about his personal life. I do think that Elon has legitimate complaints about this big, beautiful bill. And I do think we're going to have to, at some point, someone is going to have the political courage to reckon with the debt and with the deficit.
Agree.
And that has not been Trump so far.